What is happening, everybody? It is Trey here. I'm joined again by my dad, Sean, and today we're going to throw it back to 1979 with AC/DC's Highway to Hell. This is the first time we've heard this record. Of course, we're familiar with the title track. Decided to go a little hard rock today, and if this is your first time joining us, y'all, we appreciate you stopping by. Hear reactions to the classics. We take a look back at some of the most classic albums of all time, do a detailed track-by-track review of them, and like today, it's usually the first time we've heard the record. So if that sounds like something interesting to you, be sure to hit that big red subscribe button, and if you would like to link up with us more, we got our Facebook and Patreon links down below. So all that to say, let's get into some quick facts.
Yeah, it's the sixth studio album AC/DC, released in July of 1979. Tragically, Bon Scott, their lead singer, dies in February of 1980. Number 200 on the Rolling Stones Top 500 albums of all time, considered one of the greatest hard rock albums of all time. Their second bestseller behind the follow-up, which we'll have another further review of, Back in Black.
Really toured in Europe and Australia, but they also had success in America, even though they didn't have much radio play in America. And the band's previous two albums had also helped them find their sound, that raging blues-based hard rock.
Yeah, Trent, since 1975, one of the producers they had worked with every single album was Malcolm and Angus Young's brother, George. So it's a little difficult when we say, hey, you got to fire your brother. So they first brought in Eddie Kramer, who had worked with Zeppelin, Kiss, Hendrix, and they just didn't get along, didn't get anything done. So they bring in Robert Mutt Lang, and if you know anything about hard rock, you know Mutt Lang. So he comes in with them. They recorded a couple different studios. He's able to push them, and things really start to move along.
Yeah, and it was an interesting process for the group because they really hadn't worked on an album for longer than a month recording usually.
No, it was usually just get in there, get it done, and there wasn't any sort of fine-tuning.
No, and here they were really just like whipped into shape. And the band virtually moved into the Roundhouse Studios at the Chalk Farm, spending 3 months there. Lang would help out Bon Scott, and he also even taught Angus Young some useful lessons, instructing him to play solos while sitting next to the producer. And they had some melodic backing vocals, which also helped kind of shape the direction of their sound.
Mutt was part of that. Mutt was a trained singer, so he could talk to Bon over here. He knew how to play the guitar, so he actually had the respect. So you guys know how it is. If you have somebody come in, their previous producers, including George Young, didn't really know what they were doing. No offense to George. So it's like, whatever, we're going to do what we want, you know? And I mean, during that time, rock stars kind of did whatever they want. No one was going to tell them anything. So Mutt was able to come in there, crack the whip, and kind of get them to buy in, and made AC/DC much better musicians. All the lyrics on this whole album are written by Angus Young, Malcolm Young, and Bon Scott. And Bon Scott said in particular, the stuff he wrote it with sex, lust, power, money, all that stuff in mind. He thought some of the songs on the previous albums were too serious, so he wanted to get away from that. Which brings us to the first song, the title track, Highway to Hell. It was released as a single. It's number 258 on the Rolling Stones Top 500 Songs of All Time. Got an unbelievable guitar.
Just like, you know it as soon as you hear that opening riff. It just kind of welcomes you to what the album's going to be.
Exactly, and Angus wrote that. He's credited with that. Angus said years later that Highway to Hell for him was just the fact that they were on tour constantly. For the better part of 4 years, they were on tour. Even in the U.S., like you mentioned, they weren't even over in the U.S. yet. And they're touring, they're promoing everything. And he just felt like it was a never-ending cycle. They were on the Highway to Hell. Bon, on the other hand, really thought he was on the Highway to Hell. It is a tremendous rocking song, and it really put him on the worldwide map.
Iconic guitar work here. It took a little bit of a eerie turn because 6 months later, unfortunately, Bon Scott was found dead. And you know, that kind of just when you read his lyrics, he kind of just went out almost the way he describes in this song.
Yeah, he did.
So just kind of a little shift there, and of course that changed the direction of the band. But solid start to this record for sure. Then that takes us to Girls Got Rhythm. Again, just a solid guitar work here, and I mean it's really about what the title says. There's a girl who's got rhythm. It's about sex, and he can't resist her. He says he wants her to love me till I'm legless, aching and sore, enough to stop a freight train or start the Third World War.
So Bon was all in on this, right? It's that backseat rhythm that he's talking about. And much of the album is about this kind of stuff. That brings us to the third track, Walk All Over You. The first minute 15 is just guitar and drums. if you're sensing a theme here, it's there. It's about sex.
Another catchy riff here. I think Angus Young is, for me, he's the highlight of the group.
He's tremendous.
He knows how to. He might not be technically the most virtuistic guy, but he knows how to write a catchy chord. And then that takes us to the fourth track, Touch Too Much. This was actually performed on the BBC music show, famous Top of the Pops. That was actually performed 12 days before Scott's death, and they had an early version of this song that had a bunch of different lyrics and was different musically, and then that obviously changed for what we're at now. I thought this would be my top three. I think it got really catchy, those backing vocals that we talked about at the beginning, Touch Too Much. I kind of dug this one, and it was a highlight for me.
I agree. I think it was a really good track. That brings us to Beating Around the Bush. Got a very iconic opening guitar riff. Many people say it's a copy or a tribute to Oh Well by Fleetwood Mac. Once again, it's about sex. The title of the song, I'm not going to go into it. We try to keep things PG here. She's probably cheating on him. That's kind of what I get out of the lyrics. This is probably my least favorite song on here.
I actually dug it, I think, a little more than you. I liked how
I didn't hate it.
I liked how the guitar riff almost like propelled, and then it would stop, and then you just had the drum back, and then Scott delivering the vocals made it a little different. A solid way to end the A side. Then we go to start of the B side with Shot Down in Flames. Here, the guy wants to go. He talks to this girl, and unfortunately, he is shot down in flames. Poor dude.
Yeah.
And for me, the highlight of this was that walking little bass line. I thought the bass really stood out.
I agree with that, and I identify with this song because, high school Sean this could have been his theme song, baby. Shot Down in Flames. I liked it that it took a little turn lyrically from some of the other songs where they get the girl and they're doing this and they're doing this one. He's shot down in flames, man. It happens to all of us. Even the best of us, right? That brings us to Get It Hot. Same old theme. It's about sex. One thing I found funny in the song, it actually name drops Barry Manilow, one of my mom's favorites in the mid-'70s that I was forced to listen to as a small child. For me, just a middle of the road tune. I mean, it's nothing that stands out.
Yeah, I'm with you. It was a little bit forgettable for me. At this point in the album, I started to feel like we'd heard these riffs.
Yeah, I mean, Angus is so good on the guitar that it's somewhat of a curse in a way at times because every song is it's dominated by the guitar because of his talent.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, not one that I'm going to revisit too much, but then that takes us to If You Want Blood, You Got It. He borrowed the title of the band's live album that we were talking about earlier and stemmed from Scott's response to a journalist at the Day of the Green Festival in July of '78 when he asked Scott what could people expect from the band, and Scott said blood.
Well, Trey, on this one, the guitar, even above all the other songs, I think really stands out.
Oh yeah, this had the best guitar solo for me on the entire record.
I agree, and then when Bon is banging out the chorus, If You Want Blood, all the guys join in, kind of screaming it out. It's a real head-banging song, and then, they tail off, and he goes, You got it. So this song will get you going.
Oh yeah, this is one that you just put into your, car system stereo and you just turn it up to 11 and and enjoy it. And then that takes us to the penultimate track,
Love Hungry Man. Years later, Angus Young was asked, what's the worst song you ever wrote? And he said, well, I wrote this song back on Highway to Hell called Love Hungry Man. I must have had a bad night at pizza or something, so you can put that one on me. I actually kind of like it, so I was kind of surprised that Angus thought it was the worst song yet. Maybe lyrically, I don't know, but if you just turn it on and don't get too caught up in the lyrics and just listen to it, it's a good song.
Yeah, I kind of found it a little bit more forgettable personally, but again, you kind of have a formula I've noticed on this record. Not that that's a bad thing, but you're gonna have your guitar riff here, your power chords, and then you're gonna have Scott's just powerful voice going in, and then that takes us. We do shift though on this final song.
We do
with Night Prowler. This lyrically is a lot more ominous and dark than
the
previous night, because pretty much every single song we've talked about here is more lighthearted.
It's sex,
Yeah.
it's having fun, drinking, yeah.
And the song starts with 2 breaths in quick succession, so that kind of creates the mood of just kind of fear. There was actually controversy in this from a guy named Richard Ramirez. He was a serial killer in 1985, was responsible for 15 murders in LA. He was nicknamed the Night Stalker, was a fan of AC/DC, and particularly enjoyed the song.
Yeah, you know, police claimed he was wearing an AC/DC shirt and left an AC/DC hat at one of the crime scenes. It brought extremely bad publicity to the band, specifically in LA County where this happened. People were protesting against him when they had a concert there. AC/DC said, that's not what this is about. It's not about killing somebody. It's about a guy who, you know, sneaks into his girl's room at her parents' house in the middle of the night. When you read the lyrics, it really doesn't seem like it's like that.
That kind of seemed like a...
Yeah, but I don't blame the boys for trying to walk. They obviously didn't write it so some nut job can go kill and rape 15 women, right? So you kind of got to walk that back because they were getting painted into this corner. You know, you have an album called Highway to Hell. Now you got this. Now this whack job does this. It's not their fault that he did this. Exactly. I think this is a good song because it does stand out as being different.
That first verse especially stood out to me with the good imagery, saying you hear someone's baby cry, a rat runs down the alley, chills run down your spine, someone walks across your grave, and you wish the sun would shine. That was the, you know, kind of could see some lyrical chops that you didn't really see on the rest of the record. So this was a highlight for me, and then that'll take us to our favorite tracks. It would be this song, Highway to Hell, and Touch Too Much.
Yeah, and for me, Highway to Hell, Night Prowler, and that takes us to our overall grade. As you talked about in the beginning, Trey, I was not familiar with this album. I was born in 1971, so I was 8 years old when this came out. I'm not familiar with Back in Black, which we'll get to in a further review. I had the album Who Made Who that came out in 1986, which is a mixture of the next incarnation of AC/DC with Brian Johnson as the lead singer. Love that album. That's kind of my experience with AC/DC. This album does what it's supposed to do. It's a hard rocking album. For me, I give it a 7.25.
I think if I was like 15, I would like this album more.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
More than I would now. In the hard rock genre, you know what you're going to get, I think, with AC/DC. And I mean, this is what you're around with some buddies and, you know, just cruising around town. This is a good album to kind of put in and just kind of chill to, almost have a, you know, in the background in a certain sense.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're not going to miss anything lyrically.
Yeah.
Like, I break down the lyrics to every album. If you never watched one of our reviews, like over and over, I listen to these things, break down. There's not a lot to the lyrics here. It is what it is, but there's a place for that, and you just mentioned what it is.
Exactly. Not everything is going to be, you know, Bob Dylan or whatnot, where you dive into it.
Exactly.
And, so for me, I'm going to give it a 6.5. I know some people might see that and be like, "Oh, Trey, you hated the album." I didn't hate the album. It's just not particularly my favorite genre of music. I still appreciate it. I see why they are, you know, so popular and why people like them so much. And I mean, there were still some good tunes in here, and it was a fun album. And let us know what you think of Highway to Hell in the comments below. Let us know your favorite track. We will be back with Back in Black, with you know, the next incarnation of AC/DC. Like always, Dad, appreciate all the research.
Yeah, fun.
If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that big red subscribe button. We upload multiple times a week in a variety of genres. And until next time, y'all, thank you so much for watching. Happy listening, and we will see you next time.